Administration Department and Institutional Innovation Council organized a session on understanding intellectual property rights, importance for students and startups. Welcome ma'am once again.
Thank you.
Yeah ma'am. So, Professor Unmesha Patil ma'am is with us. She is a dedicated admission with extensive transactional experience in intellectual property filing and prosecution at Vishwakarma University. Her specializations include intellectual property rights law, technology transfer, and cyber laws. As a PhD scholar, her research focuses on the interaction of intellectual property, technology transfer, and educational management. She also certified as an innovation ambassador by the Ministry of Education. She is passionate about fostering innovation and guiding the next generation of legal professionals in navigating the complexities of IT and technology law. As far as her education is concerned, she has completed BSL LLB Law from IIC Law College, Pune. Also, she has completed Master degree in Law from Savitribai Phule University. Also, she has completed postgraduate diploma Gender in India from Savitribai Phule University. Welcome you ma'am. Without wasting much of time, I would like to request guide our students.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I am trying to have my camera.
Sorry, ma'am. Camera is not visible here. Means you are not visible.
Alright. So let me begin. I think one of you found yourself. There will be echo again.
Okay, ma'am.
Alright. My camera is okay now. Alright. So good morning, everyone. I'm hoping a little more participants trickle in as we go. Like I said, I am here to address everyone on the topic of importance of IT for students and for startups. So let me give you some background to my ma'am has already given an introduction. Thank you so much for that. But here at Vishwakarma University, I am a professor at Vishwakarma. As at the back, I had sent intellectual property for the past 4 years. When I say process, that means filing up to I have taken the case experience in August. We at the university we have developed an in-house capacity of development of intellectual property. But if there's any technical issue of mine, please let me know. I'll be able to figure it out for some reason. Anyways, coming to the topic at hand, so intellectual property rights, the importance of intellectual property rights is a topic that is very close to my heart. As I said, it is something that I am also pursuing a PhD in. So before we get into the details, ma'am, am I audible because my screen seems to have frozen? Hello. You are audible, ma'am. Oh, thank you. finding intellectual property, or how do you go about it? Are there faculty who have filed for it? Do they hire external agents? Anyone who has an experience about it? Yes, ma'am?
Sorry, ma'am.
So I was just asking if anyone has an experience with respect to filing of intellectual property or such.
No, ma'am. As far as students concerned, they have no.
Alright. So let me begin from scratch. I'll start my PPT presentation in just a short while, but before that, let us have some general discussions. So when it comes to intellectual property is an asset that you have created by applying your intellect. When you say intellectual property rights as a concept recognizes that if you have applied your intellect and created something, then you have the authority, or you have the right to determine how that particular thing will be used. You have the right to reap the benefits, the economic benefits of whatever you have created. So this is the basic premise of intellectual property rights, right? Now, having said that, intellectual property rights to the term is just a single term. It is actually an umbrella term under which you have different kinds of intellectual property. So it could be patent, it could be trademark, it could be copyright, it could be designs. I'm sure you have heard these terms or interacted with these terms in some capacity or the other, right? So these terms actually signify intellectual property rights that have different implications, that require different kind of protections. Ma'am, just give me a moment, I'll get that. There's some issue I need to address. Just a second. Yes, apologies, ma'am. So, like I was saying, intellectual property is a umbrella concept in which you have different kinds of properties like trademark, patent, etc. Why is there this differentiation? So let us take the example of this phone, right? I'm assuming you can see my video and you're able to see that I'm flashing a phone. So let us take the example of this phone. When you think of the intellectual property or the intellectual efforts that have been taken in the creation of this phone, what all can you think of? You can think of the design. It's easy to handle, right? So the outer design, the aesthetic aspect of it, the graphics, right? You can think about the software that goes into it, the technology that goes into it, technology with respect to cell aspect of it, technology related with respect to the smartphone aspect of it, the camera aspect of it. Now, this technology will require a different kind of protection. The design will require a different kind of protection. There will be a manual that you get along with the box, right? That will require a different kind of protection. So, the intellectual property regime recognizes the fact that there can be different intellectual efforts, and each effort requires or warrants a different kind of protection, and therefore you have this differentiation of copyright, differentiation of patent, trademark, etc. So our session today will be focused, majorly on understanding the importance of all of these intellectual property rights. Now, because we have designed it, for students and for startups, let me, start with a few, with a few statistics. Okay, so the European Union had recently conducted a survey, a study, not a survey, a study, on intellectual property rights and firm performance in the European Union. But it is definitely something that we can extrapolate everywhere else as well. This study confirmed confirms the strong positive relationship between a company's ownership of different types of IPRs and its economic performance. So, when a company goes to the extent of protecting its IPRs, its intellectual property rights, you can see the consequence of it in the improved economic performance of the company, right? So when you think of a startup, I'm sure the students have thought about ideas, have come across ideas, or have thought about ideas that have the potential of creating revenue for them, creating profits for them, solving some issue of that the society is facing, solving some challenge that the society is facing. Ma'am, here if I can ask you one thing, am I addressing students, like I don't know how the setup is, am I addressing students as well right now? Or is it faculty for the most part?
Students also.
Alright, okay. I mean, I'm sure if I love it if you will respond. But I'm sure you have at some point हम लोग Shark Tank देखते हैं, we watch Shark Tank, you get cure or news that talks about how a Spotify or the Ola or the Google kind of solve the issues that the society perhaps did not even know that it had, or kind of address needs of the society that the society had also not realized. So, for example, a email or a Zepto, for that matter, the founder of Zepto is one of the youngest billionaires in India today, right? So he started with this idea very soon. He had the conviction, and then he successfully established his own startup. So when you think of a startup, you are thinking about, or it is an idea that you think has commercial potential that can be taken to the market, right? Of course, determining which idea, validating that idea, and ensuring that it undertakes its journey to the market is a different ballgame altogether. But intellectual property plays a very crucial role in ensuring that any venture, any business, especially when it is a startup, and I'll come to how it helps a startup, but it plays a very important role in ensuring that a business does better commercially, right? So when it comes to the study that I'm talking about, small and medium enterprises, this is relevant to us because any startup would be, the scale of the startup is small at the beginning. So SMEs with patent ownership, this study found to have 36% higher revenue per employee and 53% higher wages. SMEs with registered designs were found to have 32% higher revenue. SMEs with registered trademarks, we had 21% higher revenue, right? So IP protection actually enables startups to preserve and exercise the unique and differentiated product or service that they offer. So what is a startup? How do you define a startup? If you look at the entire, how do you say, we have the Startup India scheme here that is quite successfully implemented in India. If you look at the definition of startup that the policies give us, essentially it is an entity that is giving either a solution to a new problem that it has discovered, or it is giving a new solution to an existing problem, right? So when you have come up or you have applied your mind to come up with something unique and differentiated, it is intellectual property that enables you to preserve and exercise your rights with respect to this, this particular offering that you want to give, right? One of the key success factors for a startup is to keep up with innovative offerings, right? And intellectual property actually, they are crafted so that you are able to protect this unique offering, right? So essentially, if you look at Spotify, you look at Zomato, you look at PhonePe, you look at even Legit Papad that all of us are aware. We don't think about Legit Papad as a startup in today's sense, but when it started, it was quite revolutionary, right? So, for example, Spotify, it used proprietary algorithms right? And user interface designs. They protected it through copyright to gain a competitive edge in the music streaming market and to attract venture capital funding. You had Zomato that protected its brand identity and it protected its services through trademark registration. You have PhonePe. You know that PhonePe has engaged in legal battles to enforce its trademarks against competitors like BharatPe for that matter. In doing so, it has demonstrated the importance of protecting the brand's distinctive suffix in the fintech space, right? So what I'm trying to tell you here is that startups need to leverage intellectual property, and as students, and I'm assuming there are students here who aspire to have ventures and ventures of their own. For you, it is very important that you understand what kind of intellectual property you have created. For you, it is very important to understand how you can protect this intellectual property and then how you can leverage this intellectual property, right? So how can you leverage it? I come to, of course, the theory of what intellectual property is, etc. But how can you leverage intellectual property? आपने कुछ भी अगर कुछ ऐसी चीज बनाई है जो यूनिक है, जो न्यू है, जो आपकी आइडिया है, तो उसको आप कैसे leverage कर सकते हैं? Once you secure intellectual property rights for that idea, I mean, again, if you go into the nuances of it, an idea can it really be protected, or is it the invention that is protected? We'll come to that later. But securing funding के लिए, a strong IP portfolio can be a significant asset that will attract investors. अगर आप investor के पास जाते हो, तो you will be secure that you have, you have a registered intellectual property right, or a granted intellectual property right, depending on whether it's a copyright or a design or a patent. And the investor will also know that whatever you are bringing to them is of value, right? So, funding secure करने के लिए you can leverage intellectual property. Different competitors, right? So, IPRs like patent, trademark, copyright, they provide legal protection against infringement, right? So you can prevent, you have the negative right here to prevent others from copying your core innovations, your brand elements, etc. Right? And automatically, brand value is something that you create through this. So monetizing your assets, attracting, investors, deterring competitors from copying what you've done, and keeping the benefits of your hard work is how you can, when you start a venture of your own, leverage intellectual property rights. Having said that, let me just get back to my PPT. Just give me a second, and I will begin with the PPT. I will just require a moment. Anyone has a question till then that you want me to address by the time I put on my PPT? Yes, or anything particular you want me to address in the session? And also please tell me what is the language we are comfortable in. Okay?
English.
Alright. Yes. Just a second.
Be ready for questions.
Okay, I'll start with PPT. Just give me a second. I'll be learning from another device as well. I'm also joining in from now. The device, if you could just let me in to the meeting, that would be great. I'm joining from another device for the PPT presentation. Sorry, I'm joining from an account of Patil Unmesha. You can just correct me here. Hello? Yes, yes. Ma'am, could you just correct me and I'm working for the analysis. Okay. So if you select me through that account also, I can start my family. Okay. So until one does that, let's get back to what we were talking about. The importance of intellectual property rights for startups. Now, startups, yes, you may want to have a venture of your own, but as students, how is intellectual property important? Right? Before that, can we have a, how many of you have heard of the term intellectual property rights? Out of the students?
This is being related to our smart TV, so the students won't be able to answer.
It's okay, ma'am.
Your body is not visible, ma'am. You are not visible in the meeting room.
Just hold on, I'll try it. Now, am I visible now? Can I ask you to join? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, please remember. Is there still an echo?
Actually, I think your both mics are on from your phone and also laptop, I think.
Now it should be okay, ma'am. Is it better now?
Yes.
All right, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. All right. So yeah. So coming to the fact, how is this relevant for your for the students, right? Now let me again throw some statistics to you. But before I throw the statistics towards you, let me tell you that in your student journey, you are a part of an educational institution. Educational institutions are hubs of knowledge, right? Educational institutions are where people come together to learn, to impart learning, to get learning, and in this, the synergistic energy that is created through this, it leads to ideas, it leads to, innovations, It is a very fertile ground for ideas and innovation, right? And it is what happens. So, for example, you have projects, where with the guidance of your faculty, are thinking about new solutions, thinking about new ideas. But these projects, these ideas need not be limited to your classroom or to, just contributing to your academic performance. These ideas actually definitely have the potential, and if guided in the right way, have the potential to, be converted into something that gives you value for your life, right? So it could be in the form of a venture. But even if it is not a venture, it is not a company or it is not a partnership that you have established. If you are able to protect the intellectual property, it is something that will give you benefit for a long time. It is something that will bring economic value, and the value of being an expert in your particular field and sector for a long time, right? So how does this happen? So I told you that intellectual property actually is, intellectual property is a regime that recognizes that if you have applied your efforts, your mental, intellectual efforts to create something, then that is, you have the right to use it. So for example, property. When I say property, this phone is my property. When I say that this phone is my property, what do I mean? I mean that I have the right to use it the way I want to use it. And I have the right of stopping anyone else from using it, anyone else from using it as well. At the same time, I have the right to allow the use to whoever I choose can use this particular property. So it's similar. The concept of property is similar. The concept of property is a legal concept. Okay? It is a legal concept that consists of rights and responsibilities. Okay? So similarly, intellectual property rights, because you're using the term property rights, have similar kind of implications. So what are these implications? If you own an intellectual property right, you can stop others from using it. If you own an intellectual property right, that is, if you have created something by the application of your mental faculties, then in such a situation you have the right to reap economic benefits from its use. You can rent it. So for example, let's not take the example of the phone. If I own a house, I can rent it out, I can lease it out. Similarly, if you own an intellectual property, you can transfer the ownership in a limited way or completely and reap benefits from it. Right? Now, why is this important? The ability to transfer it, we'll come to that later in when we try to understand intellectual property rights and their significance through the example of riba. But right now, suffice to say, intellectual property rights as students, they are relevant to you because you can take your ideas, and if you protect your ideas, you can actually transfer the right that you gain into those ideas, even if you are not able to, create a venture of your own. Because you own this right, you can lend it or you can transfer it, that is, sell it to someone who has the capacity to manufacture what you conjured, or who has the capacity to take it to the market, and then through a technology transfer agreement, through a licensing agreement, whatever you choose to do, you are then able to reap the benefits of the intellectual property that you have created. Now, the statistics that I was talking about, coming back to the statistics that I was talking about, you have, we see a trend that higher educational institutions have consistently filed increasing volume of intellectual property rights across the past decade, right? So you see generally also intellectual property applications filed in India by Indian citizens have seen a growth, right? You see an innovation boom in India. You see that the number of patent applications have increased. The number of granted patent applications have also increased in the past 4 or 5 years also, if you see the data. However, if you see the patent working, the number of patents that are working, that has not seen a growth. And one of the reasons for this is that even when we file an intellectual property, so let's say you create something, you have an idea and you create something of value on paper, right? So you have an idea, you file a patent for that idea. Let's say that idea is you devise or you invent a device that can drastically reduce the environmental pollution factor in a given area by 20 or 30%. Right? Now you have come up with this particular device, or you have thought of this device as a part of the project. Right? Now, okay, you got marks, your teacher praised you, you got your marks, etc., out of the project, and you're happy about it. Let's say your teacher also tells you that, okay, I feel that you should also go for intellectual property protection in this context. You go for intellectual property protection, you go to, let's say, your IP advisor, and they tell you, okay, this is patentable, and I will file a patent for you. So it happens, and you also file a patent for it because you have such a beautiful innovation that you've come up with, such an important and effective innovation. You qualify all the patentability criteria, and then you're granted a patent. Okay, you would think this is a win, but this is not actually a win. This is, of course, this is a win, but it is not the ultimate win that is possible in this situation. Why? Because once you get a patent for the student, in the short term, it will enhance their CV. It will enhance their employability quotient. For the faculty that is involved, it will enhance their academic standing in their institution and outside their institution. And most of the times, we stop here, right? Because short-term benefits are also quite good when it comes to patent protection or even if it is some other intellectual property that we are talking about. However, this is not the aim of intellectual property rights. The aim of patent law, because we're talking about patents, let's talk about that firstly. The aim of patent law or intellectual property law is to bring it to the society. Whatever idea you have created, the rights are being given by the state to you so that you bring it to the society. But what happens in the student stage, or let's say in the academia stages, we do not have the means to convert our ideas into commercial offerings, right? And therefore we stop at patent. We get the short-term benefits of it, and we're happy with it. And therefore you don't see many patents being taken to the working stage. Okay? So by law, once you file a patent and you have granted a patent, you are required to submit a form to the patent office, communicating to them what is this, whether or not, what is the working status of your patent, right? If you examine the forms that have been, and all the forms that you file are generally public information. So if you do a study of these forms, you will realize that not the proportion of forms filed and the proportion of forms that say that yes, we have a total patent is very, very, very dissimilar, right? And why does this happen? Because we do not have the capacity. Even as academicians, we do not have the capacity, or students, we do not most of the times have the capacity to convert your ideas into commercial offerings. So here is where technology transfer, here is where industry connect, here is where licensing agreements and all of these come in handy. The knowledge of this and the support with respect to this would come in handy to convert your patents into actual commercial offerings. Okay, so anyway, we'll address this also later on. Let's move away from the statistics for now. Alright, so I'll stop at this particular slide. But I will also talk about, this is the patent slide for sure. But I will also try to kind of, talk to you about what are the different kinds of intellectual property apart from patent. Alright? So we have, I gave you the examples that I gave you the examples of how Spotify copyrighted its algorithm. Right? I gave you the example of how PhonePe, fought trademark-related battles with Bharat, right? So what are these intellectual? So let's look at the classification of intellectual property. So how do you apply your mind? You apply your mind either in a creative thing, that is you draw, paint something, you sculpt something, you write a song, you write a book, you write a story. Now, when you're applying your mind in this context, you are has value for the society, but it has recreational value for the society, right? For the most part. So this is a creative right, and this is protected by, or this particular right is called copyright. And this is protected by a different set of protections than, let's say, a patent, right? So in the context of a copyright, what is the protection that you get? You get the protection of stopping anyone else from, copying your, let's say it's a script, it's a movie script that you've written. So you can stop someone else from copying your script. You can stop someone else from adapting the script into a movie, or adapting the script into a play, or writing a book out of your the script, from selling copies of it, etc. Right? So this is a copyright. When I say that intellectual property rights give you certain rights, there are certain limitations also that intellectual property rights, inherently have. Why are these intellectual property rights there? For this, you have to go to the jurisprudence of intellectual property rights. What is the jurisprudence of intellectual, and what is jurisprudence? I am a law professor, so I apologize for using some technical terms. But basically, what is the philosophy behind intellectual property rights? So, intellectual property rights are recognized by the society. So, the society says, yes, you have created something. We will give you the exclusive right to economically exploit it. But we also want to make sure, because you are a part of the society and we want to encourage creativity, we are giving you the right to exploit it economically. But at the same time, we want that particular thing to benefit the society. So, how will you ensure that it benefits the society? Only by putting some limitations. So, in the context of copyright, the biggest limitation is that of time. So, you enjoy a copyright once you register a copyright. You enjoy, of course, it's not copyright is not subject to only registration, but when you create something, you enjoy copyright in it for a period of, in India, your lifetime plus experience, generally. Okay? Of course, different types of things that you create. So, for example, government documents have a different thing, different kind of protection, different kind of timeline. But generally, it is your life plus, 60 years. Right? So, this is copyright. Then when you come to, let's say, design. Now, design, patent, trademark are not creative intellectual property. These are industrial intellectual property rights. Okay? Why? Because they mostly have to do with commercialization, revenue, starting, reaping commercial benefits or something, or economic benefits or something. So, what is design? Design is, so when I show you this phone, right? So, when I show you this particular phone, I am not able to flip it because my presentation is running, but the one phone देखियो. So, the design of it is what? The design is the aesthetic aspects of the phone, right? It's just what appeals to my eye. The two-dimensional or three-dimensional features of an object that are novel are eligible for design registration. Okay? Again, you get a protection that is limited by 10 years. Alright? Coming to trademarks. Trademarks, all of you are aware of, let's say, logos, right? आपकी favorite brands के logos पता होंगे, right? You would know Nike, you would know Puma, let's say, you would know an Apple, you would know a Samsung, etc. Right? Now, what are these? These are brands. And how do you know these brands? You usually know these brands by some graphical representation, right? By some logo. It could be graphical, it could be, essentially, it could also be a jingle, ting, 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 right? So you associate this particular jingle with Britannia or lyrics, right? So, these जो है वो एक brand को signify करते हैं, right? एक manufacturer को या service provider को signify करते हैं. And in this context, what is it that intellectual property law protects? They protect the right of the manufacturer. They protect the right of the, service provider to differentiate their product or their offering from others. Okay? So, essentially, at the same time, it is also ensuring that the customer is not fooled, right? So, when I go for a Nike shoe. I know what is the quality that I am going to get, and I am ready to pay a certain amount of money for that. If someone else rips off the Nike logo and starts using the Nike logo and the Nike name on shoes that are substandard, this is going to fool me as a customer, and I am going to waste my money. And it is also going to take away the brand value of Nike, inward the commercial, the revenue of Nike, right? So this is what is protected through trademarks. The key is, or the main person who is being protected here is the manufacturer or service provider, but also the consumer gets benefited while it is being done. So we've seen what copyrights are, we've seen what designs are, overall, overview terrace. And we've also seen what trademarks are. Now let's go to patents. Okay? Patents are the most coveted intellectual property. अगर आप copyright file करते हैं, it takes you 500 rupees to file a copyright. You can open your own account on the portal and you can register yourself and file your own copyright. It is a very simple process. Okay? You can teach yourself what the process is. As soon as you enter it is self-explanatory. If you find everything fixed, you will be granted or not granted. Your copyright will be registered in your name, or that particular whatever you created, the title will be registered in your name within 3 months, 4 months. Same for design registration. Design registration. काफी अगर आप फाइल करते हो पोर्टल पे अकाउंट खोलते हो डिजाइन रजिस्ट्रेशन भी you need an expert set, but basically if you file for it the fee is not much, and especially if you are an individual person who is filing, not an organization that is filing, and you will be granted a design within, let's say, 4 or 5 months if everything goes well. Okay, earlier also if possible. Same with trademark. The fees are a bit higher when it comes to trademark and design as compared to copyright, because copyright is a creative right and these are industrial rights and there's a lot of jurisprudence behind that as well. But when it comes to the patent, पहले तो आपको patent filing में बहुत time लगेगा, and then आपको patent grant में उसमें भी ज़्यादा time लगेगा. And there's a possibility that you may be granted the patent or not granted the patent, because the merit of your application will be very thoroughly examined by the patent examiner. Right? So yes. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you here is that patent is different from all of these rights, the earlier 3 rights, because all of these rights are registered, whereas a patent is granted. Right? So when I say patent is granted, someone has the authority to grant you the patent, and therefore they have the authority to reject your patent application as well. Right? Generally, in copyright registration, design registration, you will see that it's a very facilitative process, and if you do the formalities well and there is novelty in you, there is some merit in your application, then your application will be accepted and your intellectual property will be registered. But grant is what? Grant is a different term altogether. So when it comes to patents, and I'm assuming, ma'am, please correct me if I'm wrong, patents is an intellectual property that most of us are interested in, even in the audience. Or is it some other intellectual property? I would emphasize on that.